The new season has arrived, and I'll take my baseball with a cold beer and a $330 million free agent.
You from Jersey? Well, I got some beers for you.
He's Joe Sixpack, I'm Glen Macnow, and from the Conshohocken Brewing Company Bridgeport Brew Pub, this is What's Brewing.
What's Brewing, brought to you in part by Monco Makers, powered by the Valley Forge Tourism and Convention Board, download the app, and by the Conshohocken Brewing Company, now with 5 locations.
Hey, welcome to What's Brewing. Delighted to be back for our second season. Baseball season's here. We're going to talk about that. We're at the Conshohocken Brewing Company Bridgeport Brew Pub today. We're going to talk to head brewer Andrew Horn about some of the great beer made here. Joe Sixpack, this is Joe Sixpack. You're going to teach me how to pour a beer today, of all things.
I hope so.
And we're
it can be dicey sometimes, especially when we do it live.
And we're going to talk about Jersey beers, which is how we start our swap today. And I'm starting by bringing you Tonewood Brewing Company, which is a very good place. This is their Fuego IPA, which happens to be in one of our countdowns here.
Our wild card, yes.
There you go.
This was your choice, actually.
I like this beer.
All right, so big surprise that you would pick a beer like this, a cloudy IPA.
Sure, my favorites.
I would say this is getting a lot of buzz in the Philadelphia area.
As am I.
Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed this. Give it another shot.
It's good stuff, man. Very good stuff.
Nice tart,
It is.
kind of really good finish, but with that kind of fruitiness that you want to get from the hop flavor. Really nice beer. I like it a lot. Tonewood's doing some good beers.
They are. So let's get right to it, because our first brew down, you brought the one for that, which is kind of an iconic beer.
This is the other beer for our swap today, which is it used to just be called Exit 16, but if you can see on the label, that's only a small part of the name now. It's now referred to
I don't see that. What happened?
Yeah, double IPA.
What happened to the Exit 16 part?
From Flying Fish. I think that they might be sort of doing a little bit of rebranding on it. This has always been one of my favorite strong IPAs, and the reason is that it's made with rice, which tends to lighten the body a little bit and lets the flavor of the hops come through a little bit more. Not unlike a cloudy beer, but in terms of flavor. But look how that's a nice looking beer.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So here's what we know. Even as we drink these, that's a fine beer, very hefty.
Man, you gotta love it. That's my pick.
I know it's your pick.
I know you had to have voted for it.
Here we go. So we asked our followers on Twitter, at Real Glen Macnow, at Beer Radar, to vote for their favorite first round of our Field of 32. And the winner is...
Yes, the Tonewood Fuego.
Oh,
very good
they walk
beer.
around.
Upset.
Oh, the Stanley
The
Cup.
Flying Fish, Exit 16. It was close. 52% to 48%.
All right, but the good news for you is you got even quickly, as we did our second one. Excuse me, I'm spilling his beer. Go ahead.
Exactly, yes. In the second wild card pick, we went with...
Lord Hobo Boom Sauce, which is something I've always loved.
This is in our go-to division, a beer that you can get pretty easily.
Yeah.
May not be one of those huge beers, but is a very exceptional IPA. You went with the Lord Hobo. I went with the Bell's Two Hearted.
Yeah. You kicked my butt there.
Yeah,
It was like
absolutely.
72. By the way, the first one, the Fuego versus the Exit 16 was 52 to 48%, over 500 votes, so people got in.
Exactly.
In this one, you just kicked me around the street.
I was gaming the system a little bit on this one, Glenn. I knew that Two Hearted is such a huge favor, 2-time Beer of the Year by Zymergy magazine, which I know you subscribe to.
I never miss an edition.
And well, it's a big fan favorite. I knew we were going to crush it.
So we're 1-1 on that. All right, now one other thing. Let's talk about New Jersey a lot, because we didn't focus on it a whole lot last season. there's a good scene, but they got a lot of weird rules over there in Jersey.
Yeah, well, let's say, New Jersey had about 5 or 6 years ago had maybe like 25, 30 breweries statewide. They're now over 100, and the reason for that is a simple rule change that allowed breweries to sell beer directly to the public. Okay, good rule. Why not?
Seems sensible to me.
Only problem is that New Jersey has a limit on liquor licenses, and that means liquor licenses are extremely expensive, up to $1 million for a liquor. Now we're talking a full restaurant liquor license.
It's amazing to me that Pennsylvania is actually ahead of another state in this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Also, they got weird laws there about you can or can't buy food.
Right, and those rules are because of those high-priced liquor licenses. The restaurants said, hey, we don't need competition from breweries selling hot dogs or pretzels or whatever. No food at all.
Okay, there is one other thing, though, that we think is coming down the pike, which is good. At Conshohocken Brewing Company, at our outdoor spots, we got the beer garden here in Bridgeport, we got the outdoor deck down in Conchi. We love when people bring their puppies, right? We got some water out there for the dogs, a couple of dog biscuits. You're going outside at a brew pub, you want a dog, Jersey's, but they're coming around.
Well, the state would not allow these breweries, even though they don't sell food, they wouldn't even allow them to let people bring dogs with them. And finally, the dog lovers banded together, signed some petitions.
Powerful lobby.
It is. And the state eventually relented and has passed some rules that allow breweries, not brew pubs or restaurants, but breweries can now have dogs. I think it's a great idea. I love dogs.
I know you do.
Better.
More than kids. We had that today.
Yes, exactly.
What should be allowed in places, dogs or kids? You voted dog, and probably most people. All right, before we check out of this segment, what do you got for some good beers from Jersey?
Okay, so this, the scene is just exploding right now. We're seeing lots of stuff now. River Horse IPA, that's been around for a while. That was one of the standard beers. Maybe a lot less than that has been the Cape May Brewery. Great
good stuff. I went down there, did their chores. Good stuff.
It is actually, and this is an IPA. This is a snag and drop, and people, this is what I would call a triple IPA. Everybody talks about Pliny the Younger and so on. Same category, and I think it's just about as good as Pliny the Younger. This is a secret beer you folks should try. I love it. I do love it. Pinelands, really small brewery. This is their Swamp Donkey, great name for a beer.
Sounds delicious.
And this is just absolutely one of my favorite beers in Jersey, which is the Spellbound Palo Santo Porter. This has won some national awards. Palo Santo is a wood, and it gets aged on that wood, and it produces sort of like a coconut flavor to the beer. Outstanding porter.
Am I getting to take that one home?
It's yours.
You're the man. All right, and a couple others by Tonewood. Hey, coming up, guess what? We're going to take you out to the ball game. Talk a little baseball and beer. Come on, go together.
Perfect.
Like that. With Joe Sixpack, I'm Glen Macnow. Conshohocken Brewing Company, Bridgeport Brew Pub. This is What's Brewing.
Why walk when you can fly? Tap into your inner eagle. Yingling Traditional Lager. Spread your wings.
Hey, welcome back to What's Brewing from the Conshohocken Brewing Company, Bridgeport Brew Pub. He's Joe Sixpack. I'm Glen Macnow. It all starts up March 28th, a new Philly season. I could not be more excited. What an off season they had with everything they did, the trades, the free agents. But Joe Sixpack, a lot going on at the ballpark beer-wise.
There is. They've done a really good job with beer down there for years, putting on really good beers. They are this year, the McFadden's Bar, which has been down there, a mainstay since the beginning. Goodbye, McFadden's. Hello.
Goodbye.
New Pass and Stowe Beer Garden. Pass and Stowe, do you know who they are?
I read it. I don't remember. Remind me.
They are the guys who made the Liberty Bell.
And
their name is right on the Liberty Bell. So it's a good
admire
name.
that.
So they're going to be having a full-scale beer garden there, as well as I believe they're bringing back the old Liberty Bell, the one that Greg Luzinski once
that's great.
nailed with a home run.
That's good nostalgia.
So that's kind of fun.
Old guys like you like that. Keep your eyes open because as we speak, big-time negotiations underway. You might be able to buy some good, fine Conshohocken Brewing Company beer throughout the stadium. As I said, keep your eyes open. We're working on that. All right, big news for the Phillies. Let's talk some baseball. They signed Bryce Harper. Could not be more excited. They got JT Realmuto, arguably the best catcher in baseball. Andrew McCutchen to play left field, a tremendous hitter, fine defensive player, good leader on the team. David Robertson, Gene Segura, shortstop. I'm predicting playoffs this year, Joe Sixpack.
Wow. I'd love to see them back. They had such a bad ending last year after playing very competitively for the whole year. I'm hoping they're back there as well. Bryce Harper's a real addition, and
amazing.
Locally the beer lovers have already jumped on top of that. We saw Broken Goblet come out with a beer in his honor. The Bryce is Right.
Bryce is Right. Broken Goblet is very clever. I think they're on top of that game.
Right. They did the Jason Kelsey beer last year. They've done some, I believe, a Flyers beer. So they've been playing. I think
they might have had a gritty beer. I'm not sure, but
exactly.
they've got that figured out, and good for them. You were going to ask me some baseball questions.
I do, because
I'm ready.
On our,
I don't do this too much every day for a living. Go for it.
Our podcast, we used to do 6 quick questions, and I wanted to pose them to you.
All right.
So quickly, what's your opinion of the opener?
You're talking about when they bring in the reliever to pitch.
Yes.
I hate it. I just think it's an abomination of the game. I can't make it illegal, but it's Little League stuff.
Do you think we'll see it on the Phillies at all this year?
No, we will not see it on the Phillies. The Phillies have enough good starters. God forbid Gabe Kapler don't do that to me.
Right. Well, then, speaking of which, is Gabe Kapler the best fit for the Phillies?
Hold on one second. We'll find out. The job he was hired to do last year is entirely different than this job. He was hired to work with young players, Kingery, Hoskins, kids like that, teach them how to be major leaguers. He's got big-time major leaguers. You know what his job is to do this year? Get the sunflower seeds, put on the satin jacket, sit back in the dugout, and let it unfold. We'll find out.
Yeah, step back a little bit. Well, strategy is a big part of the game, so the shift. What do you think of that?
Shift should be illegal. The shift destroys the game. Yeah, you should have to start each play with either 2 infielders on each side of second base, or each infielder has to have at least 1 foot on the dirt. It kills left-handed hitters. You're going to see Bryce Harper hit into it a lot this year. It's not good for the game.
Okay. DeGrom, did he deserve the cy last year?
Yeah, I would have voted actually for Scherzer, Max Scherzer, Nola top 3, DeGrom. He had an ERA of 170. You don't see that too often, so I got no gripe with that.
Like less than 10 wins?
Yeah,
right?
That's his teammates. That's not him.
Okay,
it's
fair
not
enough.
an MVP award.
Okay, last one.
Yeah.
Chief Wahoo of the Indians. He's iconic out there in Cleveland.
Oh,
they got
rid of him this year. They got to get rid of him.
Yeah.
They got to get rid of the name at some point. I mean, definitely got to get rid of Chief Wahoo was an insult to everybody. They got to get rid of that. Okay. Hey, one other thing, a couple other things going on in baseball. We're going to show you this graphic right here. The Milwaukee Brewers did a fascinating thing, which is they took one of their minor league teams and named them the Micro Brews.
That is one of the funniest things, and just perfect.
So for 6 games this year, they are going to come out. The Carolina Mudcats will come out as the Micro Brews. You'll see that right there. Okay, for opening day, I want to give you my list. Old-time baseball guys I'd like to party with. I got a lineup of 9. Ready?
All right.
Counting down. I'm writing a book of lists with Big Daddy Graham, and so, this is one of them.
Okay.
Old-time baseball guys I like to party with. Number 9, John Boozer.
Yeah, of course.
By the way, these guys all played for the Phillies or the A's.
Drinky under the table.
Right. You had to take a sip for each one. Number 8, Billy Brewer pitched for the Phillies.
Really?
Yes.
All right.
Number 7, Rich Doobie.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have to drink for that one.
It's a party guy. Yeah,
Yep. Oh, yeah, he was a chuckle fest. Number 6, I wish I knew this guy. The Phillies had a guy named Johnny Lush.
Oh, jeez.
Number 5, Lil Stoner.
Oh, my word.
Lil Stoner actually pitched for...
You're making these up.
No, I spent a lot of time going through media guides. Number 4, Johnny Walker.
All right.
Played for the A's.
Okay.
Number 3, not lying, Bud Weiser. There was a guy on the Phils named Bud Weiser back in the day. Number 2, you know this guy, Bobby Wine?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whose nickname was Wino.
Yeah, right.
And number 1, Charles Yingling. All real players, all played for the Phillies of the A's.
Great all drinking team there.
There you
right?
go.
Good job.
One other story I wanted to get to. There was a local guy who was auctioning off a 120-year-old beer pitcher given to Philly Ed Delahanty as the MVP in 1899. They did not have an official MVP award at the time.
1899, so he's a
1890.
great season. What, he hit like 3
He had
home
like,
runs?
No, like 420. He led in home runs with 9.
There you
which,
go.
which was more than anybody else. 55 doubles, 123 RBIs.
That would have been at the old Baker Bowl up on North Broad Street, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And so they gave, I have all these pages, I can't find this thing, but I can fake it here. They gave him this pitcher. It was given to the uncle of this guy and sat in his house, first the grandfather, then the uncle, for 60 years. Nobody noticed it. By the way, Ed Delahanty, read the story, died when he got into an argument on a train going over the Niagara Falls Bridge. They threw him off the train. He argued with the bridge conductor and then basically disappeared. They found him 3 days later, naked except for shoes and socks in the Niagara River. True story.
Great party.
But they gave him this beer pitcher, full of beer at the time. He gave it to this fellow's grandfather, who gave it to his uncle. It basically sat undiscovered for 100 years.
Wow.
And then when they found it, they took it to a collectible place. There's a lot of debate as to what it's worth.
So it's a local guy that's auctioning
Yeah, it's a local guy.
That's neat.
The low bid was like 10,000. The high bid is it could be worth $1 million. We don't know, but it's going up for auction in August. So kind of a cool, interesting story.
Yeah, a beer pitcher that's worth that much.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah, well, so there you go. Anyway, good stuff. All right, coming up, what do we got coming up? Coming up, we are going to, now I found all those notes for that part. You see, this is a very professional operation here. We're going to talk to our brewer here at Conshohocken Brewing Company, Andrew Horn, and talk about one of the iconic styles, the British Malt Ale.
British, a malty beer that, really you don't see a whole lot of, but we see it here at Conch.
And we're going to find out why, right here on What's Brewing. Welcome back to What's Brewing from the Conshohocken Brewing Company Bridgeport Brew Pub with Joe Sixpack. I'm Glen Macnow, enjoying a great ESB, and the creator of it, the Director of Brewing Operations for Conshohocken Brewing Company, Andrew Horn. You've been on our show before. We're delighted to be back here and to have you back on.
ESB, Puddlers Row. What? I don't even know what does Puddlers Row mean, first of all?
Puddlers Row actually is a street in Conshohocken where our founder lived, I believe, while he was in college.
There's a name of a street called Puddlers.
It's not a street, it's a row, and it's Puddlers Row.
All right.
Sounds very British, actually.
As soon as he told me that, I said, that sounds like a British name. That's perfect for a British style beer. Let's go with it.
So this is an ESB, an extra special bitter.
Yes.
What makes a beer a bitter?
It's part of the English brewing tradition, and the English brewing tradition has a lot of history, has a lot of norms and things that you follow. And the extra special bitter was, the bitters were the everyday beers that everyone drank. Mm-hmm. They're a type of pale ale. Mm-hmm. The extra special bitter was the best, the nicest, the greatest, the most expensive bitter that the brewery made. There's bitter, best bitter, extra special bitter. That was the cream of the crop. Top brass.
Okay, but Glenn and I drink a lot of IPAs. Glenn, you wouldn't call this a particularly overly bitter beer, even despite the name, would you?
No, I would not. No, I mean with some of the real hop-heavy IPAs. No.
Right.
This is again from the British brewing tradition, 200, 300 years ago. They don't use hops the way we use hops in America now. Right. So this was a very bitter beer back in the day.
Would you say toasty, malty? I mean, how would you describe this?
I would describe this as extremely malt forward. Mm-hmm. It's got hop flavor. It's got a hop aftertaste. It's very delicate. It's very balanced. It's very kind of cohesive. But back in the day, when this style was being produced, it was one of the hoppier beers
It
around.
would have been one of the hoppier beers.
It's
But
not.
today, everybody is nuts about hops and the big IPAs, and yet this is one of the flagships for Conshohocken Brewing. Is that a tough row to hoe there to have an ESB as your flagship?
Honestly, it's not. It's tough to. The initial sell is tough because you walk into a bar, trying to sell a beer, everyone wants an IPA.
Yeah.
You put this in front of them and they taste it. Don't tell them what it is, and they love it.
Does it help that it's a 2-time national award winner?
I'd like to think so.
Right? Silver medal in the World Beer Cup.
Yeah, 2 silver medals in
Kinda,
the World Beer Cup.
Exactly. So malt is a big part of this beer. What are you doing with the malt? What kind of malt do you use, and how does that balance the beer?
The soul of this beer is English Maris Otter malt. And
I
that
knew
is-
it. I knew it. Yeah, Maris
That is-
Otter,
that's
classic.
that's a specific variety of malt, and it's classic to English beers. And then it's a dash of crystal and a pinch of chocolate, and just kind of balancing all of that out.
So the crystal gives a bit of sweetness, I guess.
Crystal gives a lot of sweetness.
Right.
It gives that
And-
toffee flavor.
And the which balances with the Maris, which is sort of biscuity, I guess, sort of like So so there's a complexity with the malt
Yes.
in this beer, and that's to me often a subtle flavor when you taste beer that people, they get really blown away by these variety of hops. But with malt, there are a lot of different varieties, and you can do a lot with it as a
Absolutely.
brewer.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good.
One of the things when I went to England a couple of years ago, and I think everybody goes through this experience, and you drink beer over there, and this would be something you would try to get over there. It's served a little warmer.
Yes.
Not warm, but I don't know, where they go, 50 degrees?
Cellar temperature.
Cellar temperature.
Right, people call it warm, but it is
Yeah,
cellar temperature.
Right,
yeah.
but
45
do
to 55.
Right. Do you do that at all, or you just go for? Is this
I
better
mean-
if I let this warm up a little bit?
Better is a value judgment that I'm not going to make for you.
Okay.
A lot of American breweries have made crap beer and told you to drink it as cold as you possibly
Right.
can because it tastes like crap. But the more it warms up, the more flavors come out of every beer. And whether you like them or not is really kind of up to you. But like Joe just said, there's a very complex malt profile to this beer, and that's only going to come up when it's not ice cold. So we serve it cold. I purport serving it cold because you can always warm it up. You
Right.
can't cool it back down
Right,
once
take
it's in
your
your
time
hand.
with
So
it.
yeah.
All right, we got about a minute left. I know you wanted to talk to Andrew about some of the things going on with Conshohocken.
Right, new brewery that you've just opened in King of Prussia.
Yes.
This is yet another. You were here actually for Conchi when it opened up. Head brewer opening up a new brewery. What's the challenge to working with all that new equipment?
Just making everything work the same and taste the same. There's a ton of math, there's a ton of science, there's all this chemistry, conversions, spreadsheets, all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, you get to drink a beer.
You got new toys. You're gonna have. and
I
it's-
get new
it's-
toys.
it is.
I get new
It's-
toys that make beer. They're the best toys ever.
There you go.
We're not brewing there yet, but you can get a pizza and some beer. 3100 Horizon Drive, King of Prussia, Pennsylvania.
As well as Bridgeport, Conshohocken, Phoenixville, and my
Havertown.
neighborhood place, the Town Tap. in
Town
Havertown.
Tap.
Andrew, always great stuff. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for
Excellent
having me.
beer.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about who knew I've been pouring beer wrong my whole life. Joe Sixpack, professor, is going to teach us how to do it
I knew.
right here on What's Brewing.
This season, stay up, stay out, stay wild, stay cool, and stay together because you don't have to go far to get away. Book your stay and receive offers of up to $250 at these premier attractions.
Couple things here. One, without that color foam, it's not really a beer. Two, I decided I'm going to order some nachos. And I take that first bite, and once it hits my belly, that happens. So there's about 2.5 bottles of CO2 in this beer that weren't released in the glass. That's 100% what's going on in my stomach if the beer's not poured properly. Now you think, wow, every time I had beer, I get really bloated. And that's what's going on.
was fascinating. I never knew any of that. I also have to admit, I've had the beer bloat, and I probably don't pour correctly. Joe Sixpack, I want Professor Joe Sixpack here for a moment.
Okay.
I don't have the cap and gown today, but you know, because you teach me things, and I think I've been pouring beer wrong my whole
Well, part of the reason is that people have been pouring sort of this way for years, where it's as slow as possible.
Right.
And the reason is,
I do that.
well, here's the thing. It's a Philly thing, I kind of think.
Really?
Yeah, we're cheap bastards, okay? And we want to fit as much beer as we can into a glass. I mean, did you remember going down to the vet and they used to pour them and it would be just completely, this has even got a little bit more head than those do. They would just try to pour it as much as possible to fit into the glass.
Sure.
That's actually not as bad as it
Paying
could
for
have
the
been.
foam, you
right,
know?
right, and that is a thing. I mean,
So, but why is
don't
this
want
bad? So if I drink this, what's it
So
gonna
you
happen?
won't have all the bubbles have not expressed themselves in the glass.
So where are they
and
gonna
So you're
express
swallowing
themselves?
them, putting them in your stomach, and you get the bloat.
So I feel it already.
So, and you can sort of see how that head is just sort of disappearing right away. But the way I do it, which I love a glass like this because this little ball here is designed to retain some of that foam, and because you do want the foam. You don't want it foaming all over the place, but you do want to retain
Before
some
you
of the
do
foam.
it, so I want to do this.
Not all the way, yeah.
No,
see?
look at that. That's not good.
That's crazy talk, Glenn.
Okay, well that's why I'm coming to you. Not good.
You will get thrown out of bartending school if you do it that way.
Okay, well that's why we have you.
There's nothing wrong with being a little bit of aggressive on it. You do want to come down the side,
Can they see that? They can see that.
hopefully.
Okay.
And you sort of have to judge
what
it.
am I
judge
aiming
it.
for?
You go at
Got like a
start
nice
off
inch plus
like
of foam?
that,
Yeah.
and then bring it up.
Okay.
I'm getting a little bit more foam on here than I would have liked, but it's not that bad.
Give me the science here. So now I got these bubbles.
Right.
Okay.
So you can see.
That's a beautiful thing.
It is. It's a little bit of an aggressive pour. You know, I might come back to that and bring it down a little bit, but that's a good looking beer.
So when I drink that, as opposed to when I drink this, what happens
Right, so
in
obviously
my belly?
these bubbles are all going to pop and they're
Yeah.
going to dissipate,
Yeah.
and they will collapse back into the beer because this is beer foam is beer. But they will not be down in your stomach.
So let's review the bidding, shall we? More appealing visually.
Right, right.
Probably tastes good. You know, you like the little foam a little bit on the mustache.
Right.
If you have one, or if not,
Exactly.
whatever. And you're telling me, I don't know about healthier, but better in terms of if I'm going to eat all those
Exactly.
cheese curds here at the Bridgeport Brew Pub, I'm going to be good with it.
You'll be able to drink a little bit more. Like I said, this is a little bit too much for my taste. I would have liked maybe 2/3 of that, but still pretty close.
There you go. Now you know how to pour a beer. Go forward and do it. That's our show for today. We hope you had a good time. We had a great time here at the Conshohocken Brewing Company Bridgeport Edition. We're going to be back next week. Remember, you can reach out to us on Real Glen Macnow on Twitter, at Beer Radar on Twitter. Make sure you vote. You get your vote in on our brew down, our field of 30. I mean,
32, but we're still in the wild card, so
there you
vote
go.
Early, but you only vote once.
Right, so we will have those in there, and we invite you to vote and reach out and contact us, and we will see you next week on What's Brewing.
What's Brewing, brought to you in part by Monco Makers, powered by the Valley Forge Tourism and Convention Board, download the app, and by the Conshohocken Brewing Company, now with 5 locations.